We are going to help you move forward in the fantasy playoffs. Today, I got you 12 sneaky starts that you could use for your fantasy lineups for week 15. These are players that you're thinking about putting in your flex spot that you don't really want to put in there, but you have to throw somebody in there because there's nobody else to choose from. For this situation, I'm going game by game, just looking at the matchup, looking at the recent trends, and just trying to pick a player that can exceed expectations. Most of these players are not going to hit, but we've been on a hot run in the last couple weeks. The last couple videos of the Sneaky Start series has been pretty hot, so we might have some gems for you this week. So the goal here is to find players that exceed expectations that you can put in your flex spot to help you win your matchup. And we got 12 of them today. So let's go over the first matchup on the Sunday slate, and that's the Atlanta Falcons at the New Orleans Saints, and we got a 43.5 over-under. The player we're going to look at in this game is Jarvis Landry, wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints. Atlanta ranks 27th against opposing wide receivers. They're allowing 251 passing yards per game. He has seen 11 targets in his last 3 games and a 65% route participation rate. Usually with the Saints, it's Chris Olave, go Burr, but we have to pick a sneaky player, a player that we can't obviously pinpoint. So let's look at Jarvis Landry. Maybe you can get some extra targets here. He is running 21 routes per game, so he's on the field. He's out there, so maybe the ball can roll his way. Looking at our next matchup here, we're going to be looking at the Dallas Cowboys at the Jacksonville Jaguars. We got a 48 over-under here, so we might see a high-scoring game. The player we're going to look at here is Michael Gallup. Jacksonville is allowing 255 passing yards per game. In his last 4 games, he has seen 25 targets with a 19.5% target share. Gallup's always in an earshot of having a big game. With a matchup like this, we could see him go off. The next matchup we're going to be talking about is very interesting. We're looking at the Detroit Lions at the New York Jets. We got a 44.5 over-under. The player I'm going to be looking at is Jameson Williams, mainly because Zach Wilson's killing the vibes here. I was going to be looking at some Jets players, but we're just going to have to go with Williams here because he is very sneaky. Shouldn't be started in very many matchups this week. He played 13 snaps last week, and maybe we can see a boost in his overall usage. The Jets are tough against the pass, so maybe he'll get some ancillary targets to go his way, some checkdowns, whatever, but he's also equipped to get them air yards with that 4.3, 4.2 speed. Ran over 20 miles per hour last week, so we know the speed's good to go. So he could be a sneaky start this week. We got another game that could produce some sneaky starts as well. We're looking at the Kansas City Chiefs at the Houston Texans with a 49.5 over-under. One of the highest one on the slate. But let's go a little chalky here. That way I can give you a little something easy to go with for your lineups. And we're going to be looking at Isaiah Pacheco, mainly because everyone's talking about Jerick McKinnon, and Houston is allowing 169 rushing yards per game. He'll probably get some run and be fantasy relevant. He has scored double digits in his last 4 games, so he has been steady. Again, this is just the chalky one I want to throw out for you, but we're going to go a lot less chalky on this next one. We got the Philadelphia Eagles at the Chicago Bears. 48.5 over-under. And we're going to go with Quez Watkins, mainly because he's got speed. We're going to hope he gets the ball in space a time or two and gets you some some yards after the catch. With the Eagles, everyone's going to look at Devonta Smith. They're going to look at Brown. With the Bears, we know where the ball's going with. Let's go with Quez Watkins as a sneaky start because he is a home run threat. He can make things happen. And we got a high over-under in this game as well. We're going to need to get the beer goggles on for this next matchup because it's going to be ugly, but it'll also be a fun time. We got the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Carolina Panthers. 37.5 over-under. We're going back to the running back position. We're going to roll with Jaylen Warren, playing 40% of the snaps last week. Only had 5 touches for 27 yards, but you might be able to sneak back in there. Plus, he's not obvious, so he's sneaky, so he might be able to get you some rushing production. Carolina is allowing 135 rushing yards per game, so there might be some meat on the bone for him to chew on. And if you want an uglier game than that, I got one for you. It's the Arizona Cardinals at the Denver Broncos. 37 over-under. All the QBs are out of this game, and I have no idea who to be a sneaky start because everybody's sneaky because nobody wants to start anybody from this matchup. But let's look at Robbie Anderson. He saw 4 targets last week while playing 30% of the snaps. I don't really like it, but he can get downfield, get you some air yards. Honestly, I would stay away from this game as much as possible, but I gotta pick somebody from each matchup, and I can't just throw DeAndre Hopkins out there. Moving on to the next matchup here, and we're gonna go shade chalkier, that way you can have something. New England Patriots at the Raiders, 44.5 over-under, and let's roll with Nelson Aguilar. He saw 10 targets last week, 21 targets in his last 3 games. Raiders are allowing 254 passing yards per game. The Patriots are going to need to push it a bit to keep up with the Raiders because this could be a higher scoring game. We have a middle of the road over-under here. It could also go with the under as well, so it's going to be very ambiguous until we start seeing what's happening in this game. Moving on to this next matchup. This one's going to be a fun one to watch. Cincinnati Bengals at the Tampa Bay Bucks. We got a 44 over-under, and really we know where the ball's going for both these teams with their cast of characters. So let's go with an ancillary jabroni, and he used to be a stud. Julio Jones. We've been talking about him a lot lately, but he's been seeing an increased workload ever since he came back from injury. 244 air yards in his last 3 games on 18 targets. The volume's getting there, so just need to connect on that, and if he does, he could be a sneaky play. I can't wait to watch this next matchup. It's the Tennessee Titans at the Chargers, 46.5 over-under, and with this contest, we're going to roll with Nick Westbrook as our sneaky start. Treylon Burks is out. He did not clear concussion protocol. Westbrook saw 8 targets last week in Burks' absence, and this could continue, and it should continue because the Chargers are going to push the pace a little bit, so we should see decent volume from Westbrook. This is kind of a chalky one, but as the time I was collaborating this data, Burks was kind of iffy, and he was out of practice. We're moving to the Sunday night game. We have a big matchup between the Giants and the Commanders. We have a 40.5 over-under. Interesting there, considering the last game they played, they had a point total of 40 points. So that's a very interesting script there. But the player we're going to roll with here is Jahan Dotson. Saw 19 targets in his last game against the Commanders, and that was 2 weeks ago. He's been getting volume. This one's a little bit chalky, but there's not really many sneaky players because you know who's getting the ball on both offenses, especially since these two teams tied at 20 overall last game. You kind of want to roll with who was getting the workload in that last contest. We're rolling to the Monday night game, and we got the Rams at the Packers. This was going to be an ugly one. An ugly game. So let's keep this start ugly as hell. And let's go with Kyren Williams. Friend of the channel, friend of the show. You guys all love him. And mainly because you can't get much sneakier than that. Everyone's not starting him, so that means he'll probably have his game of like 12 fantasy points, and he'll be on your bench or on the waiver wire. But Green Bay is allowing 154 rushing yards per game. It's week 15, and weird stuff happens at the end of the year with some of these young players. But those are my 12 sneaky starts for week 15. If you need sneaky starts for the Saturday slate, I posted that video yesterday, so go ahead and check that out in the archives. Let me know who's that player that you're forcing in your lineup this week that you're scared to start, but you have to. I want to hear about it because those get pretty interesting, and those are actually fun to see because sometimes you got to do it. Sometimes you just have to move on to the next week. But make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. It's only going to help you going forward. I got sneaky starts, waiver wire ads, all kinds of fantasy content. We got the rookie draft content, dynasty, Devy, and everything else. I want to thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.